Some dueling warnings as protests rage in Iran. The U.S. threatening military action and Iranian leaders threatening the very same in response. Meanwhile, this is happening as thousands have been killed in anti-government protests in Iran as Iran's judiciary head threatens execution for protesters. President Trump told CBS Evening News' Tony Dokoupil the U.S. could take strong action. As we learn, some personnel have been advised to leave a U.S. military base in Qatar. Lots to talk about this hour. Let's go live to Vatanka. He's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. First things first, can we read anything into that word that personnel should leave that base in Qatar?
Well, in the past, when the U.S. has done that, that has suggested that they expected some kind of Iranian retaliation to what U.S. had planned against them. Namely, we saw that during the 12-day war last summer. But what I've read so far today suggested the numbers being moved out of Qatar, the U.S. base at Udeid, are in smaller size compared to what we saw last summer.
Got it. Okay, so that helps us to put it in context. But when we look at the thousands of protesters still on the ground, we're getting those updated numbers. I remember yesterday morning they were at 500 protesters killed. Now we're looking at protesters in the thousands, many more detained. What can happen where protesters are concerned? What's their real power for regime change? Because we look at history, we go back in history to see if it's worked before. Can it?
That's a really interesting way to look at it. If I could just provide some quick context, the last time Iran had a revolution back in 1979, the fact was the protests that led to the fall of the Shah lasted for over a year. I don't know if we're going to see something similar this time around, but what I do know, Reed, is that this Iranian regime has lost its way. The protesters that are coming out this time around were much angrier than were just a year or 2 years ago. And I can almost bet you there will be more protests around the corner because the regime is refusing to listen to its own people. Now, that's why they have come out and killed as many people as they have. Thousands of people have been killed. They obviously gambled and they thought the United States, Israel, and this is really important because they think this is a foreign conspiracy. They wanted to come out and kill off the protest movement, if you will, before it got out of hand because they think they're in a fight for their survival.
So if this turns into U.S. military involvement and a U.S. military strike, what are the prime targets for the president in Iran?
Well, that's a good question because, I mean, it really comes down to how far the U.S. and this president is politically willing to go in because, you can take out a couple of sites that are engaged in the killing of protesters and call it a day, say I've done my part, or as some reports are suggesting, you go all the way for regime decapitation, you go for Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, in which case, as they say, if you break it, you own it. Is Trump ready to go into Iran? Because that starts to look like nation building, and that's something that, as we know, he has always been opposed to.
All right, Vatanka, thank you so much for that conversation. Certainly, we await what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours. Thank you. So let's go now to CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. So, Olivia, we saw what he had to say there. We are awaiting to see what happens, especially as those personnel are asked to leave that base in Qatar. What are you watching out for?
Well, Reid, it seems like tensions in the region are heightening right now. We know that the president has not made a decision whether it's going to be military strikes or perhaps some covert operations, psychological operation, all of those in which he's been briefed on, but has not made a decision yet on what to do in Iran. But we're starting to see the fear of what could happen spread to different parts of the region. We heard about what could happen in Qatar with the U.S. base that is there. We're also hearing about flights that are potentially being canceled or delayed in and out of Israel, with just waiting for what could potentially happen, but still no movement just as of yet. The president has asked for more briefings. We know yesterday, after he did an interview with our Tony Dokoupil and then gave a speech at the Detroit Economic Club, he came back to the White House. He made a beeline for the Oval Office once he got off of Marine One and then asked for a briefing on the number killed in Iran. That's a number that this administration has been watching very closely. And the president says they have not been able to get a firm number on how many people have been killed. And that may perhaps be informing what decisions he may make on the ground. But we do not know if they have made any decision yet on what to do. We're still monitoring the situation.
All right, so while the president considers Iran as vice president and his secretary of state are considering the future of Greenland, update us on the meeting of those two men with some of the Danish officials we've been watching out for this hour.
Well, we do know that it just wrapped. We saw the two foreign ministers, the Danish and the Greenlandic foreign minister, leaving the White House. Now, that meeting was led by Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio. And before they went into that meeting, President Trump wrote this on Truth Social. He said, "The United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. It is vital for the Golden Dome we are building." He also said that NATO becomes far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. Anything less than that is unacceptable. This was notable because this is kind of the first reason as to why the U.S. needs Greenland. Of course, the president has been saying he doesn't want to see a greater sphere of influence from China or Russia, especially as the Arctic is melting and they have the ability to get ships near Greenland and then conversely near the U.S. But the president is now saying they need it for the Golden Dome in which he is building. That is the anti-missile defense system that he wants around the U.S. And again, begs the question why he would need Greenland in order to build this Golden Dome. We do not know what the result of the meeting was between the foreign minister Vance and Rubio. We know there have been conversations about the U.S. potentially purchasing Greenland, to which the people of Greenland have scoffed at that idea. The president doesn't seem keen on taking it militarily, but if you're not purchasing it, then what other option is there? Certainly a lot of questions about this. There is going to be a press conference later this afternoon with the foreign ministers who were actually in that meeting, so we'll have to watch and see what they say was the result of talking with the vice president and the U.S. Secretary of State.
And our promise to our viewers on CBS News 24/7, when we see that news conference happening today, you will also see it. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.